Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, President Biden getting flack for pardoning his son Hunter. While back in Florida, Governor DeSantis has some spots to fill as more Floridians get set to join a second Trump administration. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state, with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime clinical and Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here again, Frank.
All right, well, we start our show with a sudden change of mind for President Biden, who said he would not pardon his son Hunter Biden after Hunter was convicted on tax and gun charges. But this past week, the president did just that. Doctor, first, let's put the politics aside for a moment, the legacy aside for a moment, and talk about the father-son relationship, why this happened in your mind.
Well, I think basically it's the psychology of protecting son, protecting
your family.
The family and your own son. And this gets very complicated to me because there's a lot of psychology here in the sense that if he doesn't pardon his son, what would that mean going forward for his legacy and his son? Are they going to be keeping him in jail, that is Hunter, in jail, and make him a figurehead that there is, in fact, this Biden crime family going into the future, and make a spectacle of him? That's a possibility, especially given all the words that have been said. So the president himself has been in a real conflict situation. This is a major approach avoidance conflict for him, because if he doesn't pardon his son's probably going to go to jail for a long period of time and may be a symbol staying in jail that's really very difficult to overcome.
You know, we had this discussion probably months ago, and I said, look, if I were President Biden and that were my son, I would probably do the same thing. I mean, it's family.
Right.
And my question is, why don't you do it Wednesday before Thanksgiving so this story is sort of buried with the Thanksgiving holiday weekend and Black Friday and Cyber Monday, instead of waiting to Sunday night and then allowing it to get several news cycles before something else comes up?
Right. And he probably never should have said that he would absolutely not.
Right.
That was a mistake.
But he had to say that because there was still.
I think it's also important to take a look at the charges that we're talking about. Buying a gun illegally, okay, but he never really, apparently no one ever fired this gun, and even in target practice or anything. So okay, he might be guilty of that, but jail, and also he's guilty of avoiding taxes. But the taxes have been paid; they were paid late, but jail.
Let's talk about the President Biden's legacy. Do you think this really will sully his legacy? I mean, we're well into the week now. We tape a little earlier in the week, so it's almost forgotten by now. We're on to some other stuff.
I really don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I think that people look at, the 4 years and you look at it in total and what it means. And of course, he'll be compared to what happens in the new Trump administration. So probably not such a big deal in the long run.
All right. Also making news this past week, Democrats and Republican senators alike are scratching their heads over some of the choices to head up key departments in the new Trump administration. The latest under the microscope is Kash Patel to head up the FBI. Now, he has said, and this is a quote, that he wants to investigate and prosecute Trump's enemies in the media and government. Right. Should we be concerned?
Well, we should be concerned because he also said he wanted to dismantle the FBI, the foremost law enforcement agency in the world ever. And he also said he wants to close down the Hoover Building on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington and have all of those thousands of officers go out and get involved in real crime, solving real crimes. I'm not sure I understand.
Unrealistic in your mind?
Well, it's unrealistic. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And you're putting someone in charge who seems to be very one-sided and not really moving the law enforcement agency forward. I mean, where's it going? What do you do with all those people there? I mean, they've got to be, feeling very, a lot of dismay, put it that way, a lot of dismay.
Matt Gaetz obviously was in trouble, and he has been taken out of the nominating process. We'll talk about this in the next segment, Governor DeSantis now be considered for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth,
Right.
apparently in trouble as well. Some of the senators are objecting. My question to you is, with regard to this, does Kash Patel survive?
Well, that's a big question mark. I have my doubts that he could actually survive because of what he said, and he's got a history that once they look at it, I think there's going to be maybe more than 4 or 5 senators that are probably going to say no.
It seems odd that they would appoint or try to appoint somebody, Trump would, that wants to dismantle the very department he's supposed to head.
Yeah, I
Seems
mean,
kind of
it just
puzzling
seems
to me.
like it's a step too far.
Okay, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to repeat myself a little bit, but I want to talk about Democrats and the middle class because a lot of the Democrats, especially Senator Brown from Ohio, they're basically saying that the Democrats, they missed the boat. They should have been pitching to the middle class better. And a lot of folks are saying this. But what bothers me is that they don't have an action plan. They say these words, but they don't have any content. And it's really troubling me because they should be saying, yeah, we missed the boat here on the middle class. But going forward, we're going to be more progressive when it comes to a flat tax and when it comes to fees and taxes generally, maybe a consumption tax. The Democrats have to think out of the box. They need to be progressive in a different way because people do not like the financial system that we are in. They do not like the tax system, and the Democrats are now perceived as the tax people. How do you win elections when you're perceived that way?
I concur. I agree with you 100%. Their whole tax or financial message was muddled at the very least.
Muddled for sure.
Okay. Coming up, how Florida could be impacted by President-elect Trump's plans to impose tariffs on our trading partners when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Florida and the rest of the nation bracing for the impact of tariffs on our trading partners. As an example, the United States, and this is just one example, gets 88% of its avocados from Mexico, so any new tariff would drive prices here up as well as spur growers in Mexico to look for other markets for their fruits and vegetables. That's just one example of what tariffs could do to the supply of foods and services to the state of Florida, not to mention higher prices for all sorts of items here and elsewhere. This is just one example. Not everybody eats avocados. Right. I didn't for a very long time. Right. But there's so many things that fall into this category.
Frank, yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought it up the way you did because I think the whole question here is whether Donald Trump will do this. Will he impose the taxes and the tariffs, actually, their tax? And I feel as a psychologist that he will. And the reason for that is because he is the authoritarian personality. For him to back down now and not do it doesn't make him look good. But more importantly, by putting a tariff in place, he's basically saying to Mexico, I'm the boss. To Canada, I'm the boss here. To China, look at me, I'm in charge. I don't think he's going to back down from that. That's not his persona. That's not his personality. So I think that the tariffs are coming, and I think we're going to see the consequences of that.
All right, real quick, how long does this go on before farmers in the Midwest say, hey, I can't sell my corn. I can't sell my wheat. China's looking elsewhere for corn and wheat. My sales are going down. How long does this happen before senators in the Midwest say this is too much?
Well, let me answer that question with a question.
Okay.
Where are we going to get our stuff?
Right.
where are we going to get
our stuff?
I mean, from Canada, you know, the parts for the cars. What about all those avocados?
Right.
How are we getting? I mean, maybe they'll ship them to China and they'll get a better price. I don't know. There's a lot of questions here, but it seems like Donald Trump believes in tariffs. He feels he'll be in charge, and that will bring in more dollars to the government. Maybe that will spur, tax changes. It just seems to be very unclear at this point and questionable in terms of how it works.
All right, thank you, Doctor. We do tape earlier in the week, so things can change before you see the show. However, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is now being considered to replace Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth to become Secretary of Defense. Now, if this does happen, and again, as of this taping, it has not been confirmed, it would mean Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Muñoz would be Florida's first woman governor and first governor of Cuban descent. A lot of moving parts here. We still don't know. And again, by the time we see the show, this might be resolved, or at least we'll know more. But what happens if DeSantis does leave as governor, becomes Secretary of Defense? What's your take on that?
I think this is likely, actually.
You
I
do?
mean, we don't know right now as we speak, but he would be able to move forward with his career in a different way. He's got only 2 years left now as governor, and where does he go after that? I think it gives him an opportunity. I think it's likely to happen, and he'll be very loyal to Donald Trump.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, Hegseth, 4 senators have come out and say, well, we're not totally thrilled with him as the nominee for Secretary of Defense. And Ron DeSantis did serve in the armed forces, so he has a knowledge of how that all works. I think he would be a better nominee, quite frankly.
I think he would, and I think that the current nominee has a lot of issues that are being discussed, more issues than we even know about in terms of his drinking, his problematic behavior, his assault on women, alleged, quote unquote. I think there's a lot of question marks there.
All right, let's go back to what you were saying a moment ago. How does this play into, and we know Ron DeSantis wants to run for president again, how does this play into his possible run in 2028?
It puts him on the national stage, on the international stage, and it sets him up to be a player going forward, more so than being governor, okay? We don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of question marks, and I think for DeSantis, he would make a good move for himself by being more international, a bigger player, and then see what happens.
You know, the Lieutenant Governor, Jeanette Nunez, if she becomes governor, we're still speculating right now, there are lots of Republicans in the state that want to run for governor.
Yeah.
She would have 2 years on the job and could legitimately say, hey, I'd like to continue the work I'm doing and run independent of everyone else and just continue my, maybe get my own term. Also, she's Cuban American, and that would help her in the Cuban community.
Absolutely.
So she would be a legitimate candidate at that point.
Legitimate candidate. She has a good background. She served in Congress for 8 years. This would be a big, big opportunity for her to step up and make herself known and be successful. She could have a very successful career.
It does juggle the statewide political scene
Yes.
should DeSantis leave.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, chilly weather in the Sunshine State this past week. I'm sure you felt it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't sunny or rainy in spots. So when we return, we see who was up this week and who was down in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. We are not called the Sunshine State for nothing, but the sun doesn't always shine, as you know. So every week we determine who enjoyed the sunshiny rays and who got rained on in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers. We start with you on a beautiful sunny day.
Right.
Who enjoyed the sunshine this week?
Well, Frank, I'm putting Christopher Wray in the sunshine this week, the head of the FBI. He was appointed by Donald Trump, actually, at the suggestion of Chris Christie years ago. Christie really pushed him. But he has acted as a real professional. He's gone after Democrats, as you know, with the Menendez case, Senator Menendez case. He's gone after Republicans. He's looked at President Trump himself, of course. And he has presented himself, I think, as a real pro, a guy who likes to be fair, very diligent, and a strong advocate for the FBI. And he's not getting a lot of good play right now. It's kind of like, well, he's going to be fired, going to be tossed aside.
Right.
I think that he deserves to be in the sunshine. I think he's done a very good job for 7 years. He's on a 10-year term. I think they should let him finish, but that probably won't happen.
In your mind, a stand-up guy.
A stand-up guy.
Okay.
I think he has shown that he's a stand-up guy.
And he is in the sunshine.
Yes. So who do you have this
Who
week?
do I have in the
Who do you
sunshine?
have?
Is that the question
yes,
you're asking
that's
me?
the question.
Well, I'm going to put Florida State Senator Clay Yarborough from Duval County. Now, when I worked as a reporter in Florida years ago, I did a story and I was appalled to find out that if you are not married to someone, or you're not under the age of 25, or you don't have children under the age of 25, and something happens with regard to medical malpractice, you are unable to sue for medical malpractice in the state. And the story was heartbreaking. This gentleman had been with his partner, his spouse, for like 38 years. She went in for a minor procedure. She passed away, and he was certain it was medical malpractice, but he could not sue because he was not married to her. Clay Yarborough, the state senator, has said enough of this. It's been going on for 34 years. He wants to change that rule so they can somebody can sue for medical malpractice, even if they're not technically related through marriage. To a partner or a spouse. You know, it's something that, it was a heartbreaking story that I did. If you're watching us on CW17 in Jacksonville, you know Clay Yarborough. But good for him.
All right, good for
He's
you.
trying
Good.
to change this law that was originally initiated to get doctors to come down to Florida, but has served its purpose or not served its purpose. It needs to go away, that particular law.
Very good.
All right, well, every sunny day we have showers. You know that. Or cold weather, for that matter. So who's in the showers this week?
I think we have to end with Kash Patel. Again, we spoke about him before, but he has said so many negative things about the FBI. And to put someone in that position makes no sense to me at all. But he himself really is interested in dismantling the foremost law enforcement agency, perhaps in the world, and saying things that are so extreme and actually, for me as a psychologist, very bizarre. I mean, these dedicated professionals have been operating for years, and they don't look at Republicans and Democrats. They look at everybody in all the cases. And for him to say these things, I think he really deserves to be in the showers. I certainly don't. I believe, by the way, with Barr, the former Attorney General, that he should not be in that position, and that he deserves to be in the showers.
He's in the showers.
He is, and he deserves to be in the showers.
Getting rained on.
In my view, yes.
Getting rained on. Okay.
So, and you, who do you have now?
Who do I have in the showers?
In the showers.
I don't know if you know this or not. I found out just recently that Tallahassee International Airport has the highest average airfare among the nation's top airports. They did a survey of 150 airports. Tallahassee is number 146. It has the highest airfare. If you fly in and out of Tallahassee, it averages about $600 to fly to Tallahassee and come back to wherever you're going. It's amazing. If you're watching us on NBC 40 and you're flying into Tallahassee, you're paying a lot of money. So Tallahassee International Airport, with the highest airfare of anyone of the 150 airports, in the showers this week.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. This is an unusual time in politics. This is the in-between time when those who ran for re-election and lost, or those retiring, bid farewell to Congress. It's also the time between the election and when the new Congress convenes next month, when politicians who fall into those categories take a deep breath and enjoy political freedom for the first time in years. What do I mean? This is when politicians who are moving on finally get to speak their minds and cast their votes the way they want to. You've seen it before. The longtime congressperson or U.S. senator who has no plans to return to politics say, now, finally now, I can vote my mind. To which I say, why weren't you doing that all along? But you can't blame them. You can't blame most politicians in general. Nowadays, if you're in Congress, you're expected to march lockstep with your party. In some cases, those running for Congress are pressured to commit in writing that if elected, they will, for example, never raise taxes or vote for this bill or that, even if they think it's idiotic to do so. As a result, we have robots, not congresspeople, who have closed minds and vote and do what they're told. Rigid thinking is childish in politics and in life. It doesn't project strength in your convictions. It projects a closed, immature mind. Things change. Circumstances change. New information comes to light. If you're running for office and you profess to be an agent of change who will vote your mind, it makes no sense to get locked into voting for something you don't believe in. For those heading for Congress next year, here's an eye-opener for you. Compromise is good. It happens every day in every facet of life. You compromise with your spouse or partner, your children. I guess what I'm saying is we deserve better. We deserve congresspeople who will not take the talking point of the day and repeat it again and again, even if they don't believe a word of it. If you are lucky enough to win, you shouldn't have to play follow the leader. Here are the facts. The issues of our day are not black and white. Decisions are made in the gray areas. That's where compromise lives. Holding on to a conviction in light of new information is ignorance in action. Let's hope our newly elected congresspeople and senators have the good sense to know that. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, Dr. Bart Rossi, and all the fine folks working behind the scenes, whose names you'll see in the credits shortly, thanks for joining us. A quick program note. Power and Politics will end its run on this station at the end of this month. Thank you so much for enjoying the show throughout the year. We will, however, continue to welcome your kind emails, as we have throughout the year, at info@powerandpolitics.tv. In the meantime, we'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.